Hello, everybody. That was really quick to go live. This is exciting. I feel like we're moving up in the world as far as Zoom Facebook connections. My name is Catherine, and I have the honor of hosting these incredible 45-minute chats during your lunch hour. These are snacking chats. They are reoccurring. Wow, recurring segments where we come together to discuss topics that are top of mind to adoptive, kin, permanency, and customary care communities in Ontario and potentially beyond. As I said, my name is Catherine, and I have a privilege of hosting these chats monthly, sometimes even bi-monthly, depending on the topics. This is one of our more special editions where we had a topic that was just so important for us to talk about that we just put this in because this is something that is big and huge, and I hope that you guys are going to get as much out of it as I have been with my own learning. So if you aren't familiar with who we are at Interwoven Connections, we are formerly known as Adopt for Life, and we are a not-for-profit charitable organization that provides free peer support, community education, advocacy, and awareness. You can learn more about us and gain valuable resources by ensuring that you click both the like and follow on our public Facebook page right here, or you can go to our website, www.interwovenconnections.ca. I'll make sure to put that in the comments as well. We are so very honored to have two incredible people and professionals with us as we talk about filial trauma, blocked care, and parental erasures. I hope I said that right. I've been practicing. I've been practicing offline. So before I do share a little bit more about how we're going to be using this platform, as well as formally introduce our guests today, I do want to take pause and acknowledge the lands that we are situated on today. I understand that we are logging in from various places within this beautiful province. So I do ask for you to take the time to reflect on your personal territory and treaty. I personally reside in the traditional territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nowish unceded nations and the Saugeen First Nations treaties within Treaties 18, which is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We do this and we will continue to do this to reaffirm our commitment and our responsibility in improving relationships between nations, and as a first step towards improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures, to recognize and acknowledge the historic and ongoing devastating effects of colonialism and racism in the name of assimilation across Canada, and how we each can consider in our own way an action forward in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. As long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the river flows. So thank you so much for taking a moment with that and reflecting on your own treaty and territory. So we want this to be an engaging and interactive lunch hour, 45 minutes. So please feel free to comment and share your insights below in the comment sections. We want you to ask questions or engage with the content, give us any insights that you may have. We also would love to know where you're logging in from. So please feel free to jot down your city down below and we can give you a little shout out or say hello. That being said, it's important for you to know that this segment is live and it is shared publicly on our social media platforms. So this means that it can be accessed at any time. And so we ask that you remain mindful around any personal or sensitive information that you're sharing, especially the information of children and youth who may be in your care. So I am pleased to introduce you to the incredible, well, part of the incredible AFGA supports team. So I'm just going to read just a little brief introduction of them both, because honestly, I think we have the most questions in Snack and Chat history. So I want to get to them as soon as possible. We have Tanya Eckler. She is our AFGA team lead. She is I was going to say physiotherapist again. She's a psychotherapist specializing in early childhood trauma, attachment complexities, FASD, and other related neurodiversities. As an adoptee herself, she brings empathy and understanding to her work, supporting families through complex journeys. She's trained in DDP, polyvagal theory, and NVR, and she offers tailored approaches to families facing AFCA as well as other challenges. That is just a little clip of who Tanya is. Next, and absolutely not least, we have Jen, and she is our AFCA peer connector. Jen is a parent of 6 children and teens with a background of social work. She and her husband have also fostered over a dozen babies and toddlers and adopted 3 older children from the public system. And she adopted their youngest child through kinship care. She has personal experience with FESD, developmental trauma, anxiety disorders, and attachment disorders. So if you'd like to learn more about them, you can join the Meet Our Team button that's going to be on our website, and learn just how fantastic they truly are, because that really didn't do it justice to any of you guys. So ladies, thank you very much for coming and for chatting. I'm just going to jump right into the questions because I think this is going to be like a fire round, but I really want people to have the chance to really dig their feet into understanding this, because this was a huge learning curve for me, and these are new terminologies. But I think the topics are things that we've heard many times. This just kind of helps really solidifies what it is that some of us may be experiencing. So the first questions are going to be around blocked care. So can you please describe what blocked care is and how common or uncommon it can be?
Sure, I'm going to start with that one. So block care is a term that Dan Hughes came up with. He created dyadic developmental psychotherapy, or DDP, and it is an incredibly common experience for parents, especially adoptive parents or parents who are looking after children who've experienced early childhood trauma and attachment complexity. It really, if you think about attachment and relationship is give and take. There's a whole reciprocity piece, and we can get through hard times with people because sometimes they give us some good stuff. And I always think about, if you think about a baby, you know, babies do a lot of really gross things. Like, they keep us up at night and they cry a lot and they poop and they barf and do all sorts of things like that. But they're cute and they coo and they snuggle. And that gives us the hormones like oxytocin, that and dopamine, that keep us going and keep us caring and keep us connecting. With our kids who have attachment difficulties, they sometimes aren't able to give us that piece that we're needing to keep feeding our ability to have compassion. And that's where I see it the most, when someone loses compassion for their child, because they're depleted. And that's what it really is. It's about being depleted inside. There's actual physiological experience of not having enough dopamine, not having enough oxytocin, to not having the serotonin to keep yourself feeling care. You keep doing care, but you don't feel it anymore. And that tends to make us feel awful about ourselves as parents. And if you hear anything, nothing else, please know that is a normal experience. It happens almost universally to all of the parents that I meet. And it is definitely manageable and treatable and doesn't have to be forever. Is that an okay intro?
Yes. I think it's like we can just end there. No. And we're good. I think that for me, at least when I was learning about this, and learning actually something that I live with is blocked care, is knowing that how common it actually is, and knowing that it's not a reflection of who I am as a parent, because it's very easy to put that kind of guilt on yourself, right?
In some ways, I see it as a symptom of good parenting, because when you're a good parent, you're giving and giving and giving. If you were an apathetic parent, you wouldn't have block care because you wouldn't care.
Hmm.
But when you're giving and giving and giving, you're kind of draining yourself of all of that stuff. And then what ends up happening too is it gets replaced with cortisol and stress. And then the shame that we feel makes that even worse. And so what we really need is, we need people to come alongside us. We need people that can help remind us that we are good parents. Because what happens a lot when you have kids that have had early childhood trauma, is we don't we can't see the results of our good parenting in our child's behavior. And so we tend to feel like we're failing. And we need people to come alongside and remind us of how much effort we're putting in and how they see us as good parents. And that starts to fill that bucket back up. And we just also need rest. We need breaks. And we need to be able to do things that do help us feel successful, because sometimes we have a hard time feeling successful as parents because our society measures good parenting with by children acting well and doing well in school and all of that. And our kids sometimes can't do that. And so that's not about parenting. That's about a lot of other things.
I think it's a very important thing that people need to hear.
Mhm.
And so another question, so I'm sure this looks differently in a lot of people, but for someone who may be watching, who maybe is resonating with what you're talking about, what could be some more general sort of signs that you are living with blocked care?
I think the biggest thing is you don't feel like you love your child. You don't, yeah, that's the feeling of love. You're doing the actions of love, but you don't feel it anymore. And again, that's so shaming. Yeah, Jen, why don't you jump
So,
in?
Tanya, you and I were talking about this earlier that I think for a lot of caregivers, it's a sense of I'm babysitting someone else's child. Like you've adopted this child, but it feels like you're babysitting and it never ends. And it's just this not able to, and I think it's good to normalize that you may experience blocked care with one child, so you have multiple children in your home. You may experience blocked care with one and not the others. And then the sense of guilt you have because you know you don't feel the feelings for this one child, and probably that child's picking up on that too. And then there can be a whole lot of jealousy and hurt feelings and all of those other things. And I know I had one caregiver, we chatted about the fact that it's kind of like when you hear stories of an arranged marriage, and there's these really wonderful stories of an arranged marriage where they fall in love at first sight and it's fine. They get married, they have this wonderful story, and then other stories that are like really, really hard. And that's essentially what adoption often is. You're just thrown together with someone that's a complete stranger and trying to build attachment from there comes easier with some relationships than others, I think, and that's
It
okay.
depends a lot on our pasts, our triggers, um, and just personality types and things like that. Not everyone I mean, I don't like everyone. And and even my kids who I do like, I don't like them sometimes. And so yeah, I think it would be really useful if we could normalize this so much more. This is normal. It is not unhealthy, but it does, when we feel it, it's a sign that we need support.
And can
Um,
we talk about that? So I know you talked about like having communities and getting the support, but what, so say, someone's just happens upon this snack and chat and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're describing me," which I think kind of what happened when I first learned about this. And I was like, so what is the support? Is there a way out of it? Can you get help? And what could that help look like for someone?
well, I think first of all, I hope that there's good professional help if people have the ability to get professional help. There are a lot of therapists that know what block care is. So having an attachment therapist, sometimes we think we need to send our kids to attachment therapists, but sometimes we need to send ourselves to attachment therapists because the therapeutic relationship becomes an attachment relationship, and you can be fed that kind of reawaken, have that reawaken in yourself through a therapeutic relationship. But also, if you just have people that are good at loving on you and you feel liked when you're with them, that's important. And it's really, really important to prioritize yourself in those relationships and time with those, because you need to have the experience of being valuable and being important and being special. And your kids may not be able to give you that for so many complex reasons. And there's no fault in them and no fault in you. But we still as human beings need to be fed the fact that we're valuable. So if you know anyone that when you talk to them, they light up and they make you feel special, that's a really great way. And those can be free.
Mm. It was helpful for me as a caregiver too, as you're chatting about that, Tanya, to realize that some things just take a long time. And sometimes you need space from each other. And that how it looks today, like 10 years from now, don't think, oh, this will be better in a year. Like it might take a decade and it's might be different. Like if you can kind of compartmentalize your relationship, if you have multiple children, into their own bubbles and try not to compare them, that this is its own thing and we have our own little dance and it's not going to look like this relationship. And some kids, the only way they attach or communicate with you might be through humor or something like that. But I think one thing you've taught me, Tanya, is just slow down, take the long view of it.
I think also anytime you can think of anything that does give you some connection with that child. Like I have one child and we went through a number of years where I wasn't particularly enjoying the relationship and neither was he. And the one thing I could do was send him memes. If there was a meme that I thought was funny, I would just send it to him and I wouldn't expect a result, but I kind of enjoyed doing it.
Mm.
And that was like a little hug I could give him, and that made me feel good as a parent. And that kind of fed my bucket a little bit too, because it's that piece of making me feel good as a parent that keeps me going.
Mm.
So, but also I think the other piece we're not talking about is peer. Peer is one of the things that we do so well in this agency is peer connection and peer groups, support groups, where you can really have people kind of normalize it again and lighten some of the shame load, because this is not something that people need to feel shame about, but we do. So the more we talk about any of this stuff, the less anytime we shine light on shame, it kind of disappears. So yeah, having safe places to talk about what you're feeling about and having other people identify with it and validate you and also say, one of the things I love about the groups we do is having people look around the group and go, these are amazing parents here. And they all feel like terrible parents, but they're all amazing. And I belong here too, because I'm probably just as amazing.
And I think it's always interesting that although you guys are a part of the AFCA supports program, this isn't an AFCA only thing. And so
No.
we see these posts in the AFCA group, absolutely, but we see these posts everywhere in all of our closed groups. And I think that just kind of, again, helps normalize and validate our experiences, because it's not all sunshines and rainbows. It's life. So
Well, and my experience wasn't with was with my teenager. It actually it's not unusual to feel this when you are raising a teenager that is not adopted, just because their job at that stage is to push away from you. And they tend to, be kind of stinky and not pleasant to be around a lot of the time. So, we can sometimes have a hard time getting that bucket filled up by them in that stage too. So, yeah.
absolutely. So I hate to kind of have to switch gears. All three of these topics are related to each other. You're going to find that as we talk, but I do want to make sure that we have time for all of these questions, but I appreciate you all answering it and giving us some meaningful discussions and conversations about this. So filial trauma, I need to tell you something. So I live with dyslexia, and when I learn a new word, I have to takes me a while to get it. Filial trauma, I always thought it was like filet mignon. So I would call it filet trauma for a while. And I'm like, that can't be right. So there's just a little Catherineism for you. So filial trauma is not filet trauma. But can you share a little bit more about what that is? Talking about the little bit of humor, that's kind of how my brain works. So let's talk about filial trauma. What is it? And maybe if you can explain how it's a little bit different or how it's connected to blocked care as well.
Sure, I can explain a little bit, Catherine. What helped me is filial. I believe it's actually like Latin. So it's like one of the Latin words for family. So that's how I kind of keep it in mind what it is and what it means. But filial trauma, so there's an amazing paper out there by a researcher named Karine Tremblay, and she is a caregiver who comes at things from that perspective. But just it's this idea of the trauma we are experiencing as caregivers raising children who are highly complex. So perhaps you're experiencing AFCA, aggression towards family and caregivers in childhood and adolescence. Perhaps it's just you have a very medically complex child with a lot of needs. Um, and it's different. So for a lot of years, we didn't really have a descriptor for what we were experiencing as caregivers. So you might have heard the term secondary trauma. Well, secondary trauma doesn't really fit because that's more, for example, if you're a first responder or a social worker, you might be experiencing secondary trauma based on somebody else's traumatic experience. Or another word would be vicarious trauma. So you're just taking in a lot of what if you're coming alongside somebody experiencing trauma and you're kind of taking that on yourself. Filial trauma is direct trauma you are experiencing in your home as a caregiver. And it's just a lot more all encompassing. I don't know if I think I would use the word like it's more serious, I think, than when you're dealing with secondary trauma because you don't get to just leave it. And it's something that consumes your whole life. And once I read Karine's paper on this, I was like, that's it. That's the word to describe it. And I think the more awareness we can raise about what filial trauma is, the better, because professionals being able to use that language and know what you're experiencing is really important. Anyway, does that kind of give a good descriptor of what it means?
I think so. Do you mind sharing like how blocked care comes into play with it? Because I almost see it almost like an umbrella, but I don't know if you
I
can
think
explain it a bit better.
I think when you're experiencing filial trauma, you're automatically probably going to go into blocked care. Tanya, would you agree? Like it's your physical body's response to danger, that you're experiencing a filial trauma that's going to result in blocked care because your body's and your nervous system is just trying to protect itself.
Yeah. And I think filial trauma is the neat thing about it is it really does a good job of describing the layers, right?
Mm.
Because there's the layer of you're experiencing aggression, but you're experiencing aggression from a child that you're supposed to take care of and you love and protect, and it's in your home. And you're being blamed for it by a lot of the services and people outside. So there's so many different layers that go along into filial trauma. It's such a unique and isolating and difficult and previously really unspoken kind of trauma. We're really, I think, by our giving the name AFCA, that aggression toward family and caregivers in childhood and adolescence, that people are suddenly going, oh, there's a name for this thing I've been experiencing, so I can start talking about it. And then we're realizing it's incredibly prevalent. There's a huge number. It's not just about adoption. It's not just about early childhood trauma. It's a really complex thing that is in much of our society. But the other piece that's really nice about this title is that the more we can understand the uniqueness and the depth of complexity, the more we can start helping our services understand it better, because the services and supports end up further traumatizing parents by not understanding. So that's one of the really, really useful things about what if we can help get this concept out and describe it better. I think that might help people have more compassion and more of a learning stance or a curious stance rather than a judgmental stance towards our families.
That makes a lot of sense. So can I ask then, for a little bit of clarity, this isn't on our scripted questions, but I like to throw these out there. So in terms of families living with AFCA, whether they're adoptive kin customary care or not, families who are customary care, kinship adoptive families, and biological families, do you find, at least in what you're kind of learning, is there a higher prevalence of people living with AFCA or who are adoptive kin and customary care who have filial trauma, or who live with filial trauma, or could it happen to anybody?
That's a good
I don't
question.
know that you go.
Well, I was just going to say, I know Kareen's paper, there were caregivers from all different backgrounds represented, but from what I recall, it did seem like there was a maybe a bit higher representation of filial trauma in adoptive families. It could have just been that that's who was interviewed and polled, but it certainly can be any family.
Yeah, to me, it's such a new concept. We need a lot more research to be able to give any kind of numbers or prevalence.
Mm,
Because in discussion and in the consortium that first kind of named AFCA, I think we're barely touching. I mean, like I said, this is a secret thing. AFCA is secret. People don't talk about it because there's so much shame and judgment involved. So once we start getting the word out there and people start talking about it and it has more research, we'll get a better idea of that.
mm. So if you're a funder out there who happen to be watching this, please know there are people who want to do more research on this so we can support more. This is totally a plug. We can support more families, and learn. Just, I think, just based on my own experience, and I've been with Interwoven Connections for many years, I would not be surprised if this is a bigger number than any of us have ever anticipated. And I'm sure it impacts so many communities, not just the adoption, kinship, customary care community, because yeah, once you start labeling things and naming things, it's interesting and kind of sad at the same time how much actually starts to come up and come out. But that also means the supports are then hopefully
And I
able to.
think I think what I like about filial trauma, the term, is it makes a distinction. Some of us maybe have a diagnosis of caregiver PTSD. That's a common thing in our community. But even that caregiver PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, the thing is, it's not post. We're not living in post. We're living in it right now. And I think that's where filial trauma, like Tanya said, the depth and the layers, and just this idea that we have so many caregivers stuck in a nervous system fight or flight response constantly. They're they're in a panic and unable to calm down constantly, 24/7. And it's just to be able to explain it that way, I think, to those around us who don't really understand the depth of how we're feeling, it's important.
100%.
To be able to explain to a system the reason the parent hasn't filled out the paperwork is because they're overwhelmed. It's not because they're not interested, so they need help. The reason that there's so many things that happen for our families, and there is such we one of the unique things in our program is we get a real overview of a lot of different systems because our families interact with a lot of different systems over the whole province. And there are people who really want to understand, but the systems are not there yet. And we really need, and we are going to need more research in order for the systems to start being able to catch up. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think the most humbling experience in my life is prior to children. I was a social worker in a very well-known autism program, and early 20s, fresh out of university, and I couldn't understand why parents weren't showing up to appointments and who weren't completing their intakes and who couldn't fill out the forms that their kids need. And, then I come into a life where I am the burnt out parent in need. And I have, oh, there's funding forms. This can give you help. And I'm like, the thought of filling out another funding form was enough to just trigger us, like spiral me. And it was very humbling to be in that position of being the parent, because you have no idea until you live it. And so, yeah, part of my life's mission is to help talk about that kind of stuff, because my goodness, you don't know it until you live it. So, and I appreciate everything. And having these conversations that weren't had years ago, I think is so important. We have 15 minutes and we still have to talk about parent erasures.
Parental
Sure.
erasure. You got it. You got it. You're good.
Good. I'm getting there. I get stuck on words sometimes. Okay, so let me just go down to make sure that I am getting it. So, can we talk about it? What is it? And how does it kind of connect to the other two, blocked care and filial trauma? Can you kind of bring that in for all of us so we can understand its connection?
I'll try. So to me, well, so parental erasure, this is a term that someone, there's something that we've been focusing on to help support families, which is called NVR, which is nonviolent resistance. Parental erasure is a term that NVR uses. And so you'll understand when I describe it, it's this, all three of these things are the same feelings within a parent often. This is a term that's used specifically for parents who are experiencing aggression. And so what you see is a parent not even actually when we meet parents who are experiencing a lot of aggression in their home, they stop existing. We'll check in with them and say, "How are you?" And they'll describe how their child is doing, because they're so focused on their child's needs and trying to avoid the next blow up and what they need to do, that they completely lose self. They lose the ability to live within their own value system, because again, they're walking on eggshells trying to avoid blow ups and aggression. They will sometimes inhibit their own self-defense mechanism in order to protect other people in the home, including the aggressor. The parent is often just overwhelmed by feeling, just like so much feeling that there's not almost paralysis. Really that stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, which is something that you see again in that filial trauma. Really black and white thinking of there's one focus, one thing's going to fix this, really stuck in a lack, which comes with that incredible stress that you're living with, is just, I can only see one way to do this. I'm going to try to get into this service, and this feeling that if I can get into this service, everything's going to be okay. And yeah, so the parents sort of stops recognizing themselves. I even remember just in parenting and without aggression, being in a stage where I was so focused on everyone else's needs that I couldn't have said, "What do I want to do?" It's like amplify that up so much more when you have aggression. And so many of our families have numerous aggressive kids in our home, not just one, or medical needs and aggression and learning needs and other trauma and all sorts of things happening. So yeah, the parent becomes invisible to themselves, but they are also invisible. The child can kind of erase them. The child will act as if the parent doesn't exist or doesn't matter, or will negate whatever the parent says. So the erasure kind of comes from different directions, from within, from the child. It also comes from systems, not validating the parent, not seeing the parent, not listening to the parent, thinking they know better than the parent. That also can really erase a parent's sense of value or self, or and they can lose a sense, even if people are trying to support, again, if they're not supporting in that specific way, that the parent we become super hyper focused when we're super stressed. So if someone's trying to support but not in that exact way, we don't see that support as being supportive or feel it. Yeah, so just looking about having a real victim narrative can also be a real sign of parental erasure. And not being able to see a way out. It's a very it's a very difficult place to get to. And that extreme parental erasure, we definitely see that a lot. I think you can, I almost think that block care is like the beginning. And then the more it happens, the more the filial trauma happens, then that parental erasure really becomes very a stuck part of who you become as a parent. Does that actually, and I hadn't thought about it before, but it's almost like a continuum in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say all three states, block care, filial trauma, parental erasure, contribute to this sense of this lack of confidence in any of your abilities as a caregiver. You
And
know,
lack of,
all three. Hmm.
yeah,
And we hear it often, parents will describe in their home that the child has become the parent and the parent has become the child. And I remember Peter Jacob, who taught us a little bit about this concept, drew a circle where the child was the nucleus, the child the very center of everything that's happening. And everyone else is just revolving around that child. And 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 it really is, you'll hear caregivers say things like, I feel like I'm just a doormat. I feel like I'm just garbage. I feel like I don't matter. It's a lack of mattering and a lack of your sense of worth as a human being, I think is a big piece of parental erasure. And a lot of caregivers are feeling like they really don't matter.
and powerless,
Mm.
Yeah.
utterly powerless. So block care is not feeling it, but you still have power in block care. But when you're in that parental erasure, you feel powerless and hopeless. I think it's kind of a lot further down that spectrum.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there are things that can be done. I
Mm.
think that's, we're in NVR, again, that piece, one of the biggest pieces of NVR is to create that network of supporters. Um, and and really having other people come in and help take parts of the responsibility and help see you and help enable you to get back to be able to live your values and balance out the control in the home so that the child doesn't have all of the control. Kids can't handle that either, but it's so hard not to, you gradually, little bit by little bit, lose control as you keep kind of giving in, trying to avoid that aggression. It's again really normal. We see it pretty much universally in the cases we deal with. So please, if you're hearing this, I really don't want anyone to feel like, oh my gosh, this describes me and I'm failing. No, this describes you, and it means you have too much aggression and not enough support,
Mm.
and you're human. And so we need to kind of really balance the scale with effective support, understanding support, and people. And we're not talking. Sometimes the support can be just little things, like someone who can just call and when you're really feeling down and say, wow, the it's that piece of people who can see you, you become less invisible,
Mhm.
right?
I think
One of
that's incredible.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
No, I was going to say one of my favorite little things that a parent can do, even or caregiver, even if you haven't done NVR or some of our other groups, that I love that our clinical team shares is just what they would call small acts of resistance. And it really is just very small things you can do in your own life to remind yourself that you're a caregiver who loves their child, that you are a human being who matters. And we hear things from caregivers like, my husband and I went on a vacation together for the first time in 10 years. Just reminding themselves, hey, I matter, my marriage matters. Or, I finally realized I pay the mortgage on this home. I can sit in the living room. I have a right to sit on the couch in my own living room just the same as my child does. And just this little act of resistance of sitting on the couch, even though their child didn't feel that that was their space to sit on or whatever it is. And just gradually, caregivers gaining their confidence more and more. And it's something that can just be very small over time, that you can kind of start to shift, I guess, in your own life.
It's that piece of starting to take up space again. You're not
Yeah.
erased. Starting
Yeah.
to be a factor in the home. And sometimes we need supporters because we know if we start to do those things, our child is going to ramp things up. So we need somebody else to kind of be there to help protect us and to help support us in those moments. The big thing we often say is we have to stop keeping AFCA secret. We have to start being able to talk about it. And if talking about it with an agency like ours is the first place you do, that's phenomenal. I think that's one of the most enjoyable things that we have is when we have people in a group and they feel like they can say these things out loud. That's a huge way to become visible again, right? Because there's a whole part that you're keeping secret and invisible, and that's erasure.
I remember in our group, someone posted recently that they ate the bigger piece of cake. And they're
Oh,
like, no, I got the big piece of cake. Everyone was like, yes, you eat the big piece. Like you deserve the big piece of cake too.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, we have 4 minutes. I would like to end two things. First, just quickly from each of you, for professionals who may be watching, who may be learning about this, what piece of advice, what would you like for a professional to hear about this, or what tidbit can you share?
Oh, Jen, I want you to do this.
Okay, throw you on the
Keep
spot.
this really short. Um, I think I think the number one thing I would say as a caregiver is to believe them. So many of us go to a professional and it's like kind of a pat on the hand, or I think they're exaggerating or not helping at all. So just to actually sit in the heaviness of it, tell the caregiver you believe them, is huge. It's huge. And it just kind of validates that caregiver's own feelings and what they're going through, and focus on the caregiver's well-being. So often you go to a professional, it's like, okay, well, how are we going to fix the child? How are we going to do this with the child? The child may not be, there may be a lot of complexities there that change isn't going to happen or not real fast. How are you taking care of the caregiver? Um, a lot of us don't have a therapist who's trauma informed as a caregiver. Tanya gives so much help with polyvagal and teaching caregivers to heal their nervous system when you're stuck in fight or flight or you're stuck in burnout. And I think it's just kind of, yes, we need an acknowledgement, but then we also need the right type of help, I would say. Um, anyway, I
I
could go
just
on
thought of
and
something I
on,
want to say. I know what I want to say to that now. If a caregiver comes to you and you're like, wow, this person's crazy, of course they are. Because I think that's one of the things that we think when professionals see parents, if you are in filial trauma, you're not going to appear sane and calm. You can't. But if someone's living with AFCA in their life, they're going to be traumatized and they're going to appear traumatized. And that doesn't mean they're bad parents. That means they're traumatized parents. And exactly what Jen said, we need to take care of parents because a traumatized parent cannot parent well a traumatized child. So if we aren't taking care of parents, the kids are never going to be okay. So that's absolutely bang on, Jen.
Thank you both very, very much. So I know we've talked, and this is a heavier topic, and not all of our snack and chats are heavy, but we do want to let you know that we are a community of customary care, adoption, and kinship parents and caregivers who get it, who live it. So if any of this resonates with you, we'd love to have you join our community. It's not always this heavy, but we also don't hide from the hard stuff here. We celebrate the joys and the wonderfulness that comes with parenting, but we also talk about things that might be more difficult to talk about. So please feel free to join. It's free to register, free to join, free to get in contact with these amazing ladies who are just a wealth of knowledge. So I appreciate both of you for coming for your lunch hour, and for all of you live or maybe watching on replay. Thank you so much for joining. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. If your questions are maybe more of a personal nature, you can reach us on our public Facebook group through messages. You can join Interwoven Connections. I have these ladies' emails. So find a way to connect with us, and we will make sure that we are finding the right supports for you, or at least leading you down the path where you don't feel so alone. Next Snack and Chat will be on June 19th, and we will be talking about FASD and mindset, something that I'm very excited for as well. Yes, so I'm very excited for that. So please feel free to join us on the 19th at 12:15. Again, everybody, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and week. Take care.